They adopted her when they had no child of their own. But years later, they treated her like a curse when they finally had a twin baby, then forced her to marry a dangerous man just to get rid of her. But what happened next shocked everyone. This is the heartbreaking story of Sophie, a girl who once had a loving home but ended up being treated worse than a stranger. All because she was adopted after the death of her mother, who had a mental illness. And now, her life takes a darker turn when she's forced into a marriage with a dangerous ex-convicted man everyone feared, who she barely knew, with a past no one wants to talk about. But what if the truth about that man changes everything? Before we dive into today's gripping story, we want to take a moment to appreciate you, our amazing subscribers, new viewers, and the incredible community that makes Moonlight Tales by Samsy so special. Your likes, shares, and thoughtful comments mean the world to us, and we're beyond grateful for your support. If this is your first time here, welcome. You're in for a ride filled with drama, suspense, and unexpected twists. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest stories. And of course, drop a comment below. We love hearing from you, and your support keeps us going. Now, sit back, relax, and let's dive right back into the story, because things are about to get even more intense. Sophie was only 6 years old when she was adopted. Her tiny hands clung tightly to the small bag she came with, just a few old clothes and a faded photo of her late mother. Her eyes were sad, tired, and quiet, like a child who had seen too much too soon. Mary and Gerald met her at the orphanage that morning. They smiled warmly and told her she was going home. For the first time in a long time, Sophie smiled too. At first, everything felt like a dream. Sophie now had her own bed, her own room with soft pink curtains and teddy bears sitting neatly on the shelf. Mary would brush her hair every morning and pack her lunch for school. Gerald would carry her on his shoulders and buy her ice cream on the way back home. They called her our sunshine. They treated her like a gift, like the child they had waited for all their lives. Every weekend, they took her to the park. On her 7th birthday, they threw a big party with balloons, music, and a cake shaped like a butterfly. Sophie wore a yellow dress with shiny shoes, and all the kids in the neighborhood came to celebrate. She laughed so hard that day. Her heart was full. She thought, this must be what real family feels like. Mary told everyone, she's our daughter. Blood or not, we love her like our own. And she truly did. For a long time, Sophie was loved. She was hugged, kissed, cared for, and praised. Her drawings were hung on the fridge. Her little poems were read out loud by Gerald. They'd say, she's so smart. So kind. We're blessed to have her. But everything changed the day Mary found out she was pregnant. At first, everyone was excited. Mary cried tears of joy and said it was a miracle. The doctors had said she couldn't have children, but now, she was carrying not just one, but 2 babies. Twins. A boy and a girl. After that, things slowly started to shift. Mary got tired more often and didn't have time to talk to Sophie like before. Gerald became busy preparing the house for the babies. Sophie still tried to help. She cleaned, fetched water, and even sang to Mary's growing belly. But the warmth was fading. Then the babies were born. The house was filled with loud cries and laughter, but not the same kind Sophie used to hear. Now, the attention had a new direction. The twins got all the hugs. All the kisses. All the love. Sophie stood by the door and watched. No one noticed she was there. Mary no longer smiled at her in the mornings. She'd yell at her for making noise, for dropping things, even for walking too slowly. When the babies cried, Mary blamed Sophie, even if she wasn't near them. Can't you see they're upset? What did you do now? She would shout. One day, Sophie wore the blue dress Mary had bought her for her last birthday. Mary looked at her and frowned. Take that off, she said coldly. Those kinds of clothes are for girls who behave well. From then on, Sophie wore old clothes, faded, oversized, and worn out. The teddy bears were packed away to make space for the twins' toys. Her drawings were no longer on the fridge. Her poems were no longer read. Gerald, who once called her Angel, now walked past her like she was invisible. Mary's words started to hurt more than anything else. "Be grateful we took you in," she'd say. "You're not even ours." Sometimes, when the babies cried, she'd slap Sophie without asking questions. "It's your fault. You bring bad luck." She even started calling her names. "Daughter of a mad woman," she'd hiss. "Just like your mother." Sophie would lie awake at night, listening to the twins breathing gently in the next room while she hugged her old bag tightly. She still kept that faded photo of her mother. It was all she had left of a time when she felt truly loved. Outside, things weren't any better. The neighbors who once smiled at her now looked away. Kids who used to play with her were no longer allowed. "Don't talk to her," their parents whispered. "That's the one with the crazy mother." Sophie was still that same kind, gentle girl, but no one saw it anymore. They only saw a burden. A mistake. A problem to be solved. And deep inside, Sophie started to wonder, what did I do wrong? At first, Sophie was excited when Mary said she was pregnant. She didn't really understand what it meant, but she saw how happy Mary and Gerald looked, and she wanted to be happy with them too. Every day, she helped around the house even more. She cleaned the floors, washed the plates, and always brought Mary water and pillows so she could rest. She believed that once the babies came, their family would grow stronger, and she would be a big sister. Then, the day came. Mary gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Everyone in the family, even people from the neighborhood, came to visit and celebrate. They brought gifts, food, clothes, and toys. Everyone was laughing and smiling. But Sophie noticed something: no one was looking at her. No one even asked her to come sit with them. Mary didn't ask her to help carry the babies or take pictures. Sophie just stood there, watching from the corner. That night, everything changed. Mary suddenly became cold. She no longer smiled at Sophie. She no longer hugged her or told her sweet stories before bed. Gerald stopped bringing her candies from work. Her favorite pink blanket, the one Mary gave her last Christmas, was taken away and given to the baby girl. At first, Sophie thought maybe they were just tired. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Sophie was no longer allowed to eat with them at the table. She ate alone in the kitchen. She wasn't allowed to touch the twins unless Mary told her to. And if one of the babies cried, Mary would storm out of the room and slap Sophie across the face. "Why is she crying? What did you do now?" Mary would yell, even if Sophie was nowhere near the baby. One time, the baby cried because he was hungry, but Mary still blamed Sophie. Another time, the baby sneezed, and Mary said it was because Sophie had bad air and told her to stay far away. Sophie didn't understand. She tried harder to please them. She cleaned more. She cooked even when she was tired. But no matter what she did, it was never enough. One day, Mary opened Sophie's wardrobe and took back all the beautiful dresses she bought for her birthday. "You don't deserve these anymore," she said. "They're too good for the daughter of a mad woman." Those words cut through Sophie's heart like a knife. Mary said them all the time now, daughter of a mad woman. She said it in the house. She said it outside. She even told the neighbors. Because of that, the neighbors started acting strange too. They used to wave at Sophie, smile at her, and give her sweets when she passed by. Now, they looked away. Some mothers pulled their kids inside whenever Sophie walked by. Some children laughed and whispered when they saw her. Others looked at her like she had a disease. Sophie was confused. She didn't choose her mother. She didn't choose to be adopted. She was just a little girl who wanted a family. But now, it felt like the whole world hated her. Even Gerald, who once carried her on his shoulders and called her his little girl, now acted like she didn't exist. He would walk past her and not even say hi. Sophie stopped smiling. She stopped talking unless someone asked her to. Her eyes were always red from crying, but no one noticed. Her hair was messy because Mary no longer helped her style it. Her clothes were old and torn, but Mary said there was no need to buy her anything new since she would soon be out of the house. Sophie often sat under the big mango tree at the back of their compound, where no one would see her. She would cry softly and ask God why. "What did I do wrong?" she'd whisper. "Why don't they love me anymore?" She missed the way things used to be. She missed Mary's hugs. She missed Gerald's laugh. But most of all, she missed being seen. Being wanted. Now, she was just a shadow in her own home. A forgotten girl living in silence, carrying pain far too heavy for someone her age. And the worst part? She had a feeling things were only going to get worse. The morning was quiet, with only the faint sounds of birds chirping outside. Inside the house, Gerald sat on the worn-out sofa, flipping through a newspaper that looked like it had seen better days. Mary stood by the window, arms folded tightly, staring at the road outside with a frown on her face. Sophie was in the backyard, quietly sweeping the dried leaves. She didn't know that today would change her life forever. Mary let out a tired sigh, then turned to face her husband. "We need to talk about that girl." Gerald looked up from the paper. "Which girl? Which other girl do we have, Gerald?" Mary snapped. "Sophie. She's not a child anymore. She's growing into a woman. A very stubborn one, too." Gerald dropped the newspaper on the table. "What's she done now?" "It's not about what she's done. It's about what we're still doing for her," Mary said with irritation in her voice. "We feed her, clothe her, give her a roof over her head, and for what? She brings no joy into this house. She walks around with that long face like we owe her something." "But we adopted her," Gerald said slowly. "She's our responsibility, isn't she?" Mary scoffed. "That was before I had my own children. Don't forget, Gerald, she's not mine. Not by blood. She's the daughter of a mad woman. People laugh at us, you know. They say we're raising the child of a lunatic. I can't take the shame anymore." Gerald rubbed his beard, thinking. "So, what do you want us to do? Throw her out?" "No. That would look bad," Mary said, pacing the room now. "But I've been thinking. There's one way to get rid of her without looking like the bad guys." Gerald raised a brow. "And what's that?" "Marriage," she said sharply. "We marry her off. She's old enough." Gerald blinked. "Marry her off? To who? Who would want her?" Mary's lips curled into a smirk. "Ray." Gerald sat up straight. "Ray? The ex-convict?" "Yes," she said with confidence. "Think about it. The man just got out of prison. He has no wife, no family, no one. He'll be grateful. And he won't ask for bride price or wedding celebration. He'd take her just like that." Gerald looked unsure. "But he was in jail for murder. He was released, wasn't he?" Mary replied quickly. "They said it was a mistake. Maybe he didn't even do it. Either way, it's not our business. Sophie will be his wife. She won't live under our roof anymore. We'll be free." Gerald was silent for a while. Then he nodded slowly. "You might be right. But what if she refuses? Mary laughed. A cold, sharp laugh. Refuse? She won't dare. Not after everything we've done for her. We raised her, fed her, protected her. She owes us. It's time she pays us back. Gerald sighed. I guess it's better than keeping her here. The twins are growing. They need their own room soon. Sophie's just taking space. Mary smiled, satisfied. Exactly. We'll speak to Ray today. You know where to find him. Just tell him we have a wife for him, free of charge. Gerald chuckled a little. Free wife. That might be the best deal he's had in years. Mary turned back to the window, arms crossed again. Good. The sooner we get her out of this house, the better. Just then, behind the slightly open door, a shadow moved. Sophie had been passing by with the broom and had heard every word. Her heart pounded fast in her chest. Her hands trembled. She backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound. But a loud creak from the floorboard betrayed her. Gerald stood up quickly and pulled the door open. You were listening, he barked. Sophie's face was pale. Her lips moved but no sound came out. Mary stepped forward, her voice low but sharp. Well, it doesn't matter. Now you know. Start getting yourself ready. You're getting married. Whether you like it or not. Sophie opened her mouth again, but the words couldn't come. Her legs felt weak. Her eyes filled with tears. Mary looked her over and shook her head. Ungrateful girl. This is the least you can do for people who took you in when no one else wanted you. And just like that, Sophie's fate was sealed. Not by love. Not by choice. But by people who once claimed to care. Sophie shook her head, tears falling freely now. Please, please, Mama. I don't want to get married. Not to him. He's not a good man. Mary stepped closer. Her voice was sharp and cruel. And who are you to say no? Ha! Daughter of a mad woman. You should be thankful someone even wants you. I should have left you in that orphanage to rot. Sophie fell to her knees. Please, I'll do anything. I'll work harder. I'll stay quiet. Just don't do this to me. Gerald pulled her up roughly. Enough. You're going to marry him. That's final. Sophie cried and cried. She ran to her small room and locked the door. She fell on her small, thin bed and buried her face in the pillow. Her cries were loud but muffled. She hugged her only doll tightly, the one thing she had left from when her real mother was still alive. She whispered, Mama, why did you leave me? Why is this happening to me? Her chest hurt. Her head pounded. Her body shook. She felt like the air was running out of the room. No one came to check on her. She stayed like that until the sun was high in the sky, still crying, still praying that this nightmare would end. But deep down, she knew. No one was going to save her. It was the morning Sophie would never forget. There were no flowers. No music. No excited friends or giggling sisters to help her dress. Just cold silence in the house and a gown that wasn't even a gown. It was one of her old dresses, faded and torn in one place. Mary didn't bother giving her anything new. Not even a comb for her hair. Be fast. Don't keep the man waiting, Mary barked, throwing the dress at her and walking away like she didn't care. Sophie stood there for a moment, staring at the dress. Her eyes were blank. Her heart was heavy. She didn't know what to feel. This was her wedding day, but it felt more like a punishment. Like a burial. As she got dressed alone in her small room, she could hear people arriving outside. Neighbors. Some came out of curiosity. Others just wanted to see the adopted girl getting married to an ex-convict. Sophie's name had become gossip in the entire area. And now, her wedding was the newest joke. No one came to check on her. No one knocked. No one asked if she was okay. When she finally stepped out, people gasped. Not because she looked beautiful, but because she looked like she didn't belong in a wedding. Her hair was undone. Her eyes were red. Her dress looked like something from the trash. Some guests laughed quietly. Some didn't even try to hide it. "She looks like she's going to a funeral," someone whispered. "She is," another person replied with a chuckle. Then Ray came in. The groom. He looked just as rough as she did. His shirt didn't fit well, his trousers were too short, and his shoes were too pointy and funny looking. The crowd couldn't hold back anymore. They burst into laughter. "This must be a prank," one boy said, holding his stomach. But it wasn't. It was real. Sophie and Ray stood before the small crowd. The pastor, who clearly didn't want to be there, rushed through the ceremony like he was in a hurry. Mary and Gerald sat on plastic chairs, smiling and whispering to each other as if they had just won something. "Do you, Ray, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the pastor asked. Ray nodded. Yes. He didn't even look at Sophie. "And you, Sophie, do you?" The pastor paused. Sophie wasn't answering. Her lips trembled. Her hands shook. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Do you?" the pastor repeated. With a small, broken voice, she whispered, "Yes." The vows were said. The rings, old and rusty, were exchanged. And just like that, Sophie was now a wife. When the ceremony was over, there was no celebration. No food. No music. Nothing. Outside, instead of a car or anything decent, there was just an old motorcycle. Rusty. Dusty. It looked like it hadn't been started in years. No ribbons. No decoration. Just the sad sound of laughter from the crowd. "Is this their getaway car?" someone laughed. Sophie stood still, looking at the bike, her eyes wide with shock. Where are we going?" she asked Ray in a shaky voice. Ray shrugged. "I don't know. I've been in prison for years. I don't really have a place." Her heart dropped. She could barely breathe. "What do you mean you don't have a place?" she whispered to herself, her hands shaking. The crowd started cheering mockingly. "Ride on, bride and groom," they shouted. Ray climbed onto the motorcycle and signaled for Sophie to join. Her body moved, but her soul stayed behind. She sat behind him, holding her dress tightly. Ray tried to start the bike. It didn't move. He tried again. Still nothing. The crowd started laughing louder. He kicked it harder. Once. Twice. Still no sound. Then finally, it roared to life with a loud, ugly noise that made the entire street explode with laughter. Some people fell to the ground, holding their stomachs. Sophie looked down at the ground, her tears mixing with the dust as they rode away slowly, awkwardly, and painfully. Behind them, people waved not with joy, but with pity and mockery. And in front of them, Sophie didn't know what the road would bring. But deep inside, she whispered, "God, please, don't forget me." As the old motorcycle wobbled down the dusty road, Sophie sat behind Ray, her arms barely wrapped around his waist. She didn't know whether to hold him tight or keep her hands to herself. The wind slapped her face gently, drying the tears that never seemed to stop. She didn't speak. She didn't know what to say. Her heart felt heavy like she had just been dragged into something she could never escape from. Ray, on the other hand, rode in silence. His shoulders were stiff, and his face showed no emotion. He looked ahead, avoiding eye contact with the laughing people they passed on the road. Children pointed. Adults whispered. Sophie could hear some of them say, "That's the girl married to the killer." She didn't correct them. What was the point?